For decades, advocates marched toward federal courthouses, demanding justice. Today, a prominent civil rights organization finds itself inside that courthouse, facing a grand jury. The Southern Poverty Law Center built its reputation by bankrupting the Klan and tracking hate groups. They served as the premier watchdog dedicated to dismantling white supremacist networks across the nation. This mandate gave the organization immense societal influence, allowing them to shape public policy and cultivate a massive, high-profile donor base eager to fund the fight against domestic extremism. Following a lengthy Justice Department investigation, the government handed down a sweeping indictment against the SPLC. The charges are strictly financial. A federal grand jury has indicted the nonprofit on multiple counts of wire and bank fraud. The core of the prosecution's case rests on a startling allegation that the organization clandestinely funded members of extremist groups to intentionally incite racial hatred. If true, prosecutors argue the group effectively manufactured the very extremism it claims to combat. This accusation threatens the SPLC with severe penalties, while calling its entire historical mandate into question. The Justice Department's probe into these financial practices spans several years, though government officials report the investigation was temporarily halted during the previous presidential administration. The operation eventually resumed, with investigators claiming that informants tied to the scheme remained active on the ground as recently as 2023. The most volatile claim in the indictment points directly to the violence of the 2017 Charlottesville protest. Prosecutors specifically highlight financial links between the organization and the organizers of that rally. According to the government, the individuals receiving these funds were operating as informants, but rather than quietly gathering intelligence, they were allegedly directed to actively provoke racial hostilities. The indictment suggests the intent behind these actions was self-preservation. By ensuring a continuous, highly visible presence of extremism, the organization could continually justify its own ongoing operations and fundraising appeals. It is crucial to note that these timeline events represent the Justice Department's working theory of the crime. None of these claims have been legally established as historical fact. To secure a conviction, prosecutors must focus on the financial mechanics of the case, specifically the alleged mishandling of over $3 million in donor contributions. The government's case relies on mapping out these transfers. They allege that while donor funds entered through standard channels, a concealed secondary pathway routed $3 million to extremist members without detection. By intentionally bypassing oversight, the organization allegedly failed to disclose the true destination of these payments to financial institutions. This active concealment is what elevates the action to federal wire and bank fraud. The SPLC's executive leadership vehemently denies every single aspect of these accusations. They have publicly labeled the government's claims as completely unfounded and pledged to mount a vigorous legal defense to clear the organization's name. In the immediate aftermath of the indictment, their strategy focused on reassuring supporters, stating contributions were utilized correctly and strictly within their legal mandate. This establishes a stark contrast between a public-facing fundraising apparatus and allegations of deep financial deception. For the Justice Department, tracking these transactions provides the most concrete evidence available to prove their case in court. Prosecuting complex financial fraud is notoriously difficult. Federal prosecutors bear an exceptionally high burden of proof when taking these cases to trial. The highest evidentiary hurdle will be proving intent. The government must demonstrate that the SPLC knowingly and intentionally deceived the banks, rather than simply committing administrative errors in their ledgers. Before a trial can begin, both the prosecution and defense face a grueling discovery process, combing through years of internal communications and banking records. The stakes for the civil rights group are absolute. A conviction would likely destroy decades of donor trust and could lead to the total dissolution of their multi-million-dollar treasury. The Justice Department faces equal exposure. Sailing to prove these claims against a historic watchdog would trigger massive political and institutional fallout for the government. As the legal proceedings move forward, the foundational principle of the American justice system remains in place: the absolute presumption of innocence until proven guilty. The indictment lays out a severe accusation, but the facts regarding manufactured extremism and millions in hidden funds will only be resolved within the strict adversarial environment of a federal courtroom.